Greetings! Good morning. There's my coffee. Today, we're going to talk about the Ganzfeld effect. This is part of the continuing Kyva Go series. One of the subscribers that has contributed a lot to content on the channel, so much so that I've had to create an entire playlist. So, which is a good thing. Not complaining at all. There are many subjects that are covered in her questions regarding my video, I want to be a cyber psych. In reality, I want to be a doctor. But let's see here. This pertains to a certain someone who has been posting videos and has been generating some questions on the supporters of the Honorarium series in the aftermath. Okay, it's going to have to do. So, the Ganzfeld effect, not field, sorry, from German for complete field or perceptual deprivation, is a phenomenon of perception caused by exposure to an unstructured, uniform stimulation field. What the hell is that? Let's see if it has it in the Cliff's Notes. Oh, that's German. So, an unstructured, uniform stimulation field. Wolfgang Metzger in 1930 performed the first psychophysiological study with regard to the Ganzfelds. The effect is the result of the brain amplifying neural noise. Let's look at what neural noise is. Neural noise refers to the random intrinsic electrical fluctuations within neural networks. Fluctuations are not associated with encoding a response to an internal or external stimuli and can be from 1 to 2 orders of magnitude. Most noise commonly occurs below a voltage threshold that is needed for an action potential to occur. APs, that's what occurs in your brain, action potentials. Sometimes can be present in the form of an action potentials, for example, oscillations in pacemaker neurons or suprachiasmatic nuclei are partially responsible for the organization of circadian rhythms, which is the rhythms of your body that, regulate your heart rate and blood pressure and all sorts of stuff. So, the effect is the result of the brain amplifying neural noise in order to look for the missing visual signals. The noise is interpreted in the higher visual cortex and gives rise to hallucinations. Well, I had quite a lot of hallucinations before, during, and after Scientology. So, whether or not I'm qualified to talk about the Ganzfeld effect, you'll just have to judge for yourself. I've just experienced hallucinations. And there are other people recovering from Scientology who are experiencing hallucinations. Doesn't mean they're crazy. It has been most studied with vision by staring at an undifferentiated and uniform field of color. In other words, a black page, a white page, a single color. The visual effect is described as the loss of vision as the brain cuts off the unchanging signal from the eyes. The result is seeing black, an apparent sense of blindness. Flickering Ganzfeld causes geometrical patterns and colors to appear, and this is the working principle for mind machines and the dream machine. So if you've ever seen those little animated GIFs that they say stare at for 1 minute and you'll hallucinate, example of the Ganzfeld effect. It can elicit hallucinatory perceptions in many people in addition to an altered state of consciousness. This is real. Go on YouTube and look up Ganzfeld effect or Ganzfeld hallucination or make me hallucinate. Ganzfeld induction in multiple senses is called multimodal Ganzfeld. This is usually done by wearing Ganzfeld goggles in addition to headphones with a uniform stimulus. A related effect is sensory deprivation, although in this case a stimulus is minimized rather than unstructured. Hallucinations that appear under prolonged sensory deprivation are similar to elementary percepts that are caused by luminous Ganzfeld, including transient sensations of light flashes and colors. Hallucinations caused by sensory deprivation can, like Ganzfeld-induced hallucinations, turn into complex scenes. So some history. In the 1930s, Wolfgang Metzger established that when subjects gazed into featureless fields of vision, they consistently hallucinated and their electroencephalograms changed, their EEGs. The Ganzfeld effect has been reported since ancient times. The adepts of Pythagoras retreated to pitch-black caves to receive wisdom through their visions, known as the prisoner's cinema. Miners trapped by accidents in mines frequently reported hallucinations, visions, and seeing ghosts when they were in the pitch dark for days. Arctic explorers, seeing nothing but featureless white landscape, snow, for a long period of time, also reported hallucinations and an altered state of mind. Okay, so in an earlier video, when I talk about PTPs, the oversimplification of things, what they call in Scientology is pushing someone's anchor points in. In my opinion, can cause perceptual distortion. And not necessarily distortion so much as a decreased amount of perception. And it can cause this Ganzfeld effect, because the effect is the result of the brain amplifying neural noise in order to look for missing visual signals. Now, this may not necessarily be just visual signals. This could apply to other things. This, again, is my opinion. Visual stimulation is just one of many of our sensory perceptions. So, the reduction of awareness, or the reduction of perceptions, whether smell, sight, touch, what we got? 5 senses. Sense of sight, smell, touch. Where's my coffee? Taste. And sight, smell, touch, taste. I apologize. Sound. The reduction of your perceptions can lead to amplification of neural noise in order to look for missing signals. So, on an aside, one of the processes in Scientology to bring someone's awareness back up instead of pushing their anchor points in is to do what they call a locational, where they say, look at this, touch that, look at that, touch this, is designed to do the reverse, to get someone looking out instead of in. In auditing, you're looking in. If a pre-clear or even an OT is having perceptual distortions, you run a locational on them. Look at that, touch this, look at that, touch this, thank you, blah, blah, blah. Now, not everyone is subjected to the same processes. So, what I'm saying is everyone is introduced to Scientological processes in a different order. There may be groups of pre-clears that are subjected to it at the same rate, the same content, the same rate. Groups of twins, they call twins, which are people who group up on a particular action, training, or auditing. But locationals, from my experience, like it or not, reduced hallucinations for me. Now, my time on staff over time, you begin to, what they say, push the anchor points get pushed in. In other words, you internalize everything, and your brain will start to produce it'll start to look for missing neurological processes, which amplifies neural noise, cognitive dissonance maybe, and this can cause hallucinations. So this is called the Ganzfeld effect. Now, whether or not you believe that a reduction of particular senses or even feelings can result in the Ganzfeld effect, you know, that's totally your decision. But from my experience, it's very possible, and it does happen. There was another pre-clear on staff who got into Scientology the same way I did because of his hallucinations. Wouldn't stop. And I was amazed when I met this person, because I never met anyone who had these uniform, constant hallucinations. Same thing. Locationals worked for him. So Not only can it produce hallucinations, but it can produce altered states of consciousness. Whenever I had my final hallucination crazy episode shortly before I tried to hang myself in the mission, I was in an altered state of consciousness. In fact, Monica was very concerned, didn't know what to do with me as a particle. I was staring into a corner, and the walls were Kansas corn. I remember the color because Kathy was very picky about the color. We repainted that fucking wall I don't know how many times. And then there was a faux finish that we did. And, I mean, 2,000 square feet of wall with a little rag or a sponge. And we had to do 2 coats because there was Kansas corn, some kind of red, and some kind of other brown. I was staring into this corner. I was having very bad hallucinations. And there's a person right now on YouTube who has been publishing videos who I am very concerned about, and a lot of people are too, who is having perceptual distortions and hallucinations. Now, does this person need to see a psychologist or psychiatrist? I'm not qualified to answer that question. But what I do feel I'm qualified to say is that they're not real. And this person has stated she knows they're not real. Does that make them feel any less real? No. Does she still feel like she needs to work out why she's having them? Yes. Is publishing videos maybe helping her? Probably. So we're talking about the Ganzfeld effect. And I will tell you that just watching this person's videos has a re-stimulating effect. To re-stimulate. In other words, trigger. And since there's a component that relates to circadian rhythms, it will affect your sleep. It will affect your appetite. It will affect your state of consciousness. It will affect your language. It's a horrible thing to experience. Just ask someone who's ever gotten lost in the Arctic, or ask someone who's ever been stuck in a cave. Because in a sense, that's what it feels like. You could be walking around outside, cars driving by, and having visual and auditory hallucinations, knowing it's not right. Your brain is doing something. Your brain is amplifying neural noise. Now, in my opinion and in my experience, that occurs because, remember, I had experienced these hallucinations before, and I believe they were drug related. But once they started to subside and I got clean, and the locationals were working, I'd say they had about a 50% effectiveness. Just someone saying, look at that leaf on that tree. Look at this mouse. Look at this P on the piece of paper. Look at this, look at that. You will start to become more externalized and oriented into the world. I wish there was some easy way to fix this, but for me there was not. I could probably get to a state where I'm hallucinating constantly again. And I believe that this effect can be reproduced on people in bigger ways than just visual hallucination. And I also believe that Scientology's processes, their objective processes, and their creative processes, and their auditing processes are designed, whether they're designed to or not, they can create this effect by pushing someone's anchor points into their head. And if you correlate that to other effects, bottom line mentality, escalation of commitment, effort justification. In other words, the narrowing of one's viewpoint of life, you can create this effect. So that's the Ganzfeld effect. And if you've never experienced it, the person, if you run into someone who is, especially someone who is continually experiencing it, you'll think they're fucking crazy. So, and the recommended action usually with psychiatrists is antipsychotic medication. Now, if you know anything about antipsychotic medication, you know that when you start it, you can't stop it. Now, as an individual who's experiencing this, you can choose to start taking antipsychotic medication, of which you are never to stop, or you can experience it, whether you know what the Ganzfeld effect is or not, and know that it's not real. Not really. It's not really real. It may feel real, you may see it, you may hear it, you may feel it, you may taste it. Simply not real. So, and it's incredibly disturbing to see someone experience this. I have some, I have one other thing to add, is that whenever I spoke to a psychiatrist about this, and I told him about how the locationals, look at that, look at that, look at this, helped the hallucinations I was having, He said, oh, that's normal. We do this therapy for people who have schizophrenia and stuff like that. And it's called, distraction therapy, or, what do they call it? What did he call it? In other words, you're distracting someone from the hallucinations. You give them activities to do besides sit around and hallucinate. And in a sense, it is not unlike locational processing, because you're telling someone to look and do something else. So, if you happen to see any ex-Scientologists online or in real life exhibiting schizophrenic type behavior or hallucinations, I would beg you not to pass judgment and say they're hallucinating. They may well be. The problem is if you start to say that, it makes the hallucinations stronger. Don't validate it, because it's not real. It's hallucinations. Just listen. Because the odds are, if this person has not gone to a psychologist or a therapist or a psychiatrist yet, and they've been experiencing this for a period of time longer than a month, odds are they're not gonna. And if they haven't done any harm to themselves or anyone else, and they can function, all I'm saying is that they can work it out. It's possible. I'm not saying they can. I'm saying it's possible. And because I did it, and I don't have, if I do have hallucinations, I don't recognize them as such. I was what they called a heavy drug case, so my next action on the bridge was supposed to be the drug rundown, which is total freedom from the use, the past effects of drugs, the ill effects of drugs, which I was told, that's what it was. Perhaps it was a combination of the drugs, and then I was able to get some relief from the objective processing or the locationals. But the reduction of self and the other effects that we've talked about, group thinking, illusory correlation, there's just a laundry list of effects that Scientology has on one's mind. And if you're not an auditor and you haven't received any training, which a lot of public Scientologists do not, then you are simply the effect of it. You can't find the cause. So I can only imagine trying to figure out what's causing this if you haven't studied auditing. So that is the Ganzfeld effect, and I hope that I've explained it well enough for people to understand its application in real life outside of Scientology, and how it could possibly apply to those involved in Scientology even after they leave. It's a horrible thing to experience, and it's even worse whenever people call you a schizo, or people call you a nutbag, or you know, a head case, or a faker, or whatever. So that's the Ganzfeld effect. Kyva go. Thank you.